So yes, welcome at our first Sketch and Design meetup here in Cologne. First of all, I would like to spend some words about the company and the general topics we want to discuss in our meetup. So welcome at grandcentrix. First of all, some information about grandcentrix. Grandcentrix is the leading end-to-end system integrator for Internet of Things, platforms and smart products. This means that our company includes many departments from ideation, UX design to front-end development. We are providing a full spectrum from prototyping to mass manufacturing for our customers. And to get an idea what we are doing, so we are doing consulting, we have also an electronics embedded department, we have like cloud platform engineers and front-end data insight guys and also cybersecurity. And yes, we have now, oh wait, yeah, this is kind of buggy. It's nice, but yeah, everything is done in agile product development. That's great, and we have over 150 full-time architects, engineers, designers, and product builders here in Cologne as well as in Dortmund at the Phoenixsee. And yeah, some of our office, so some images. This is the open space area. So we have on each floor an open space area where we are communicating between the platforms and between the different disciplines. So we have an interdisciplinary team, and our company is separated into 3 units with developers, designers, project managers, and so on. And we have also a large kitchen area and a great rooftop for summer and barbecue and some nice meeting rooms. And we are currently building a new office in Dortmund. And this is our biggest meetup, or one of our biggest meetup we have ever done. So thanks for coming, thanks for joining us, as well as on the live stream. And if you want to post something about it, there's a hashtag, of course, SketchCDN. And here also, again, the information we are streaming and recording and photographing. And all of you have provided your signage for a GDPR notice. So yeah, welcome 2018. Yeah, you can watch this stream again after the presentation has finished at grandcentrix.tv. This will link to the YouTube channel where we also upload the recording of that. If you are looking for a new job, then of course grandcentrix.net/jobs. And we have also this funny thing here. This is a catchbox, and after each presentation we would like to throw it in here, or maybe we will just like hand it over, because yeah, even though it's very soft, this should not happen because it's very bad. Yeah. And now I would like to give the microphone or the stage to one of my colleagues, Janine Richartz, who's a UX designer at grandcentrix, and she will talk about collaboration with Sketch and Abstract. Give it up for Janine.
Ja, hallo. Danke. Okay, hallo, hört man mich? Ist das Mikro an? Ich denke schon. Okay, yeah, thank you, Max, and thank you for joining and coming and listening to my talk, Collaboration Workflows with Sketch and Abstract. Yeah, but first of all, I'd like to know something from you. Who has ever heard about Abstract? Okay, and who has ever worked with Abstract before? Yeah, that's a few people. And you people already know the advantages of Abstract, but let me tell these to you all. Abstract is a tool that helps you collaborate with teammates and other designers in your sketch file and other teammates in your project. Abstract solves a problem which I'm sure most of you or most of designers have already experienced this before, including me. When 2 people are working at the same time in the same sketch file, in the same sketch file, there's always a conflict. Because at the latest, when you want to save your file, there's a chance for overwriting changes, and that's not what we want. So Abstract helps us to avoid this. But let's start at the beginning. And within the beginning, I mean 2015, because that's the year we started working with Sketch. In our past projects at that time, we already had different sketch files for the same project, but different parts of the app For example, we had a file which is named device pairing and another file that is called device details. And there were always a conflict and struggle because of the limitations. Because in 2015, no one ever heard about libraries or symbols, which is quite normal for us when we're working today in Sketch, but at this time, it wasn't. Especially when we had big design changes which affected both of these files, UX and UI changes had to insert it manually, which caused inconsistencies. So this was also getting even a bigger problem when we had large scaling projects, because we had more files and we had global design changes and had to edit this in every file. Because we lost the overview and had no tracking of changes and who did these, it was very mad. So we started investigating how we could solve this, and we asked other designers how they do. And also we asked our developers which tool they use. And if you have a developer background, or if you have ever worked with developers together, you may heard about Git. Git is something they use to collaborate on code, and they use it for reviews as well. And that was something we wanted to have for us designers too, so we found that in Abstract. But before showing you an example and go deeper into detail how we work with Abstract, here are the main features of it. Abstract is a version control system. With Abstract, it shows what has changed, who has changed it, and why it was changed. And with Abstract, you no longer have that mess with the crazy file names. Because with creating branches in Abstract, Abstract names your files itself. So you not only have the change control of the files, but also the version control. Yeah. No, this is not a metro plan. This is the overview of how Abstract works. We have masters and branches. Not masters, we have one master and branches. As you can see, the blue line in the middle is the master file, and the other branches are branches, yeah. It's for when one colleague works on the branch number 1, and another colleague works on the branch number 2. The changes which are made in the branches doesn't affect the master file until you say it will. So after they finished editing, the outcomes of the branches will get together into the master file at the end. Now let's have a deeper look into how it works. After you've created a project and invited all your team members, you have to import your sketch file. And after that, the collaboration starts. With creating a new branch, you can name it and give an optional description. The next step is, here we see an overview of the file, of the artboards and symbols in this file. Now you push edit in Sketch, and Abstract makes a copy of the master file. Now you can work in Sketch as you're used to be. You, for example, add screens or edit symbols. And after saving it, you push preview and commit. And all the changes you made are in Abstract now. You can give a description again, what you did. And you see the file you are working in. And when you commit changes, the branch is in Abstract. Here we can see what we have added. And now I go deeper into that artboard I added, and I can make comments. This is really nice for collaborating, because you have the nice features to work together with your colleagues. Yeah. The next step is that the changes I made are in the history, and now we see that Max sees that I gave a comment, and he can see what I wrote, and he can answer to it. Yeah. This function is very nice because members can now comment screens, discuss it, or make annotations, as we can see here. So I can now see which part of the screen he really wants to say something to me, and I can respond to it. Now we see how Max makes other changes. So he creates another branch and gives it a name. And the process again, he edits the file from Sketch. And then he edits another artboard than I did before. He adds symbols, and he edits the style, and he adds thumbnails, and some stuff you always do in Sketch. Yeah. And again, he saves the file later, and as we can see later, the goal of it is that the changes and the changes I made before can be merged together later, as we can see after this. Okay, he adds an image to this. Now he saves it. He gives a description, very important. It's a bit annoying always to type something, but yeah, it helps. The last step is to merge the branches. This is all, again, the view from me. I see now what changes has been done or made, and I will put these changes together. As we can see in this history here. And now that my branches are together, and Max gets again a notification that something is merged, and he has to update the master file so that all changes are in one master file, and this should be the only single point of truth. Yeah, here we can see again. Yeah, now he opens the master and sees that every change is here. And that's it. Sorry for the gap. Okay. Yeah, that's all Abstract is about, but there are some things we need to mention. First, currently it's not possible to merge something on artboard level. This means when two people are working on the same artboard, you unfortunately still have the same conflict as before, because you have to decide now which content of which artboard you have to choose. But this is only on artboard level. Maybe they will fix it. I don't know, when we all say it to Abstract, maybe they do. The second one is sometimes Abstract shows changes on view that are not really visible. It's something like a bug, because Abstract isn't yet it's still in the beta version. One very important thing is you need to open the Sketch files always directly from Abstract in order to track the changes. Because when you have Sketch files locally, for example on Google Drive, like we in the past also did, when you would open this from this local server, then you won't get the changes made in Abstract. So it's very important always to push that Edit in Sketch button to open the files always from Sketch. And of course, there are some alternatives for Abstract. For example, Cactus.io, which is also compatible with GitHub Enterprise, which is nice, but that hasn't the nice interface like Abstract. So and now we would like to answer your questions, if you got any, or start a discussion. But first, thank you and have fun to the next speakers. Danke. Yeah. Questions?
Thank you at first, Janine, for having this talk. So if you have any questions, we will just throw this sketchbox here. As you can see, you should try to catch it. Brian. Sehr gut, ich hoffe, wir haben das auf Video.
Hello.
Geil.
Hello. I was wondering, where is the data stored and saved?
Yeah. The data. Wolltest du jetzt werfen? The data is stored deeply within the Mac structure, I think. Yeah,
Yes, so you have it locally, you can export it also, but it's then, so Abstract is like hosting it on their own servers, but you have a local copy, and you can export it every time. From every branch, so every version you have ever done.
Funk? Anyone want to catch it?
So what about the lustige DSGVO, if it is stored in the cloud?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, I think
Our Datenschutz.
we have a data protection guy here from
Our
our
Datenschutz
company.
guy.
Hello. Yeah, okay, it works. I happen to be the Datenschutzbeauftragte of grandcentrix. And, well, actually, it shouldn't be a problem because the sketch files usually don't contain any personal data, do they? If they don't, then it shouldn't be a problem. If your sketch files contain personal data, you should ask yourself probably why do they contain personal data in the first place. But other than that, as it's just like a design not related to any personal data, I think, well, maybe the only really necessary personal data would be the data of the colleagues working with it, and they could obviously give their consent as the term of the work contract.
If I'm working on a product that
Wait.
if I'm working on a product that isn't released yet, that should be in the Öffentlichkeit.
That might be very well true, but that's nothing that the GDPR covers. It's only about personal data. So that is something then that you need to discuss with your client under an NDA or something like that, yes.
Only one comment, no question. You have to ask the client if you are allowed to use this. I would definitely ask the client. Because if they want their own cloud, because they have some security stuff, you are not allowed to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, we have also one question from the internet, and we were asked how to resolve merge conflicts. And yes, this is something that can happen, and it's the same as Janine told you. It's not possible to merge on the artboard level. So if someone has made changes in branch A for one specific artboard, and the other person has also made changes in branch B for this artboard, you need to decide which version do you want to keep. So you get like a comparison, version A, version B, and then you have to decide. So that's how merge conflicts are solved in Abstract.
Which is still better than working together on one sketch datei, which causes always the problem. When you want to save the file and sketch, the pop-up blows up that you have to review changes from other teammates, which is more frustrating, I think, than using have that possibility, which is not so big, that you have merge conflicts in Abstract.
Yep. Okay.
How do you get the changes in branch A to the master file? If you decide to take the changes from branch B, there's still some work that was done, and I don't want to lose it.
Yeah, so this is what you saw. In order to merge something, you need to have the updated version. So Janine is not able to merge something if the master has already got upgraded. So she needs to pull in Git language the updates in order to then merge it. So this can't happen.
But if two people or three people at the same time...
Yeah, then you have like the merge conflict I was talking about, where you need to select something. So you have like both versions selected, and then you can just only select one, which is getting in the master.
How do I get the other work into my master file?
This has to be done manually then, so by hand. So it's quite, it's not great. So it's like a good practice to make it, so to separate the tasks between the UX designers, like they are not getting conflicts on the view. Yeah. Or by using symbols, because then it's like relatively easy.
Yeah. Okay. There's one question.
Yeah, we have Also one question from the internet, but first of all,
Yeah, hi. Do you have a recommendation, like from which team size on is it, would it make sense to use the program?
In my personal experience, it was very helpful even with 2 people working on a. Yeah, we also have projects where we are only 2 people on small projects, and we are also working with abstract.
yeah, but so if you're working alone on a file, it doesn't make any sense, obviously. But yeah, for 2 people, it's quite great, and for even bigger teams, it's like I think it's a must.
Yeah. And when we didn't use abstract before, we had the problem. I always had to told my teammate, please close the sketch file, that I don't overwrite your things. This was very, yeah, how can I say, exhausting. Yeah.
Thank you.
So before we answering your question, we have also another question from the internet. And the question was if we have ever tried out some other collaboration tools like Figma. And yes, we have, but Figma is like a web app and it performs very badly from my experience. I think there's a Mac client, but it's like Electron based. So yeah, so we have like large scale productions here at grandcentrix, and it's not so great to have like 300 artboards inside a web view, and then you need to try to have like a decent performance.
So my question is about it being in beta status, as you mentioned. Do you feel safe using it in production environment? And have you experienced like any kind of data loss or anything like that because it's still in beta?
Yeah. So right now it's very stable. So crashes and like plug-in incompatibilities when Sketch updates its version, it's like rare. But when we started and when it was like in the alpha stage, we constantly exported our files locally, which is like a thing they also provide. So you can just export your files whenever you want.
Okay, thanks.
No headshots, please.
Thanks. Actually, I have one remark to the question before, whether it makes sense to use it when I'm only alone. Well, as a former developer, I think it might indeed make sense because I might want to try something out, try to experiment without like wanting to break my file. And with that, if I understand it correctly, I could just do a git reset or resetting it to the master branch and discard all my changes without damaging anything. And it does make sense. So you could also ask a developer, does it make sense to use Git if you're working alone? The answer is definitely yes. So it might also be true for that use case.
Yes, Timo was right, especially for reviews. So if you have like a review with another colleague here inside the company because one person is working on a project alone, for example, then it's super helpful to have like the common feature and to have discussion about this. Also, you can revert to every version. So if something is like broken or got lost, then you can just revert it. We have also one last question from the internet, and this is maybe he can repeat it. Yeah, the developer handoff. This is something Abstract is currently working on, so it will be a thing. So you have like the same functionality as for Zeppelin, for example, to have like a handoff for the developers, so developers can see like specifications, pixel sizes, colors, text styles, everything. But right now we are using Sketch internally for our developers because we want to go away from Zeppelin because it's like an information silo that we need to maintain by hand. So if something changes in a Sketch file and if something, or if I delete something in a Sketch file, I also need to delete it in Zeppelin. And for larger projects, it's like a lot of maintenance work. And yeah, our developers for one project we are working on here are using Sketch, and they are just browsing through there because Abstract has also a read-only mode, so nobody can destroy something by accident. Yes, yeah. So I think we need to continue with our next speaker. Thanks again, Janine, and thanks for all the great questions.
Thank you. I got.
So our next speaker is my former ex-colleague and yeah, also my mentor. So Brian has taught me a lot of things about UX design and working in this in this field of designers. So I'm very honored and very happy that you are here today to talk about your work at Rewe and also about screenshots and web designing. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here. It's great to see the offices, great to see all the old colleagues and everything. Just a question, first of all, do we have any front-end web developers here? Okay, you guys can take a smoking break or something. This might not be so useful, this talk. And I got to try out one thing before I continue. Let's see. Okay. I got to see. This is me. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about Chrome DevTools and using that as a design tool in combination with Sketch. And my name is Brian Ramirez, and I am a UX team leader for content in our website at Rewe Digital. And there are currently 7 people in my team, and we work on 8 projects at the moment and are responsible for over 2.25 million visits per month. So it's a lot of things going on. And this is just a small example of something that I've worked on with a colleague. We built a prototype for a web page in HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And but we at Rewe Digital, we also build, of course, in Exure and, of course, in Sketch using Marvel or InVision. And but basically, when it comes down to our work as UX, UI designers, we have to think about what are we going to add to a web page, for example? What are we going to remove from a web page? What are we going to change? I mean, we monitor the performance of our web pages, and we have to communicate changes at the end of the day. So how do we communicate change? And how do we bridge the gap between design on the one hand and a final product on the other hand? Because in the end, what we design in Sketch is never going to be exactly how it is in the web. It's the wild, wild web, right? So there's a lot going on. So let's just think about this from a UX, UI standpoint. Say, for example, you have a website and you have to communicate change. What do? So the problem is you could rebuild everything, for example, in Sketch from scratch. If you don't have any Sketch files pre-existing for a project, you might be working with an older website, for example, and so somehow you have to compare, a current state of a website, and then integrate your changes and then communicate those changes. So, for example, I took the it's already slightly old, but the landing page for the Sketch website. And say, for example, you want to rebuild this from scratch. I mean, that's very, very time-consuming. You have to add all the elements, copy the stylings. Maybe you don't even have a font, so you might have to either download some horrible copy of a font or somehow get a hold of a nice version. You have to add all the elements, check all the colors, spacings, margins, and all that. And of course, all this work is multiplied when you're working in the web. You have not only one breakpoint, but basically unlimited viewports. A second problem is, or a second way of going about things is to just screenshot a web page. And in my experience, some plugins are not the greatest. I mean, you could. I use, for example, sometimes Awesome Screenshot as a plugin. And I mean, it does an all right job, but especially in very interactive web pages, you have some elements that you don't really show in a screenshot. Or let me try this again. In this case, you have the scroll bars that are displayed on the web page, so it's not ideal. And another way of going about this is you could export web pages as vector graphics and then import them into Sketch. I don't know if anyone's ever tried this, but it's very, very messy. For example, with Protoship Teleport, you can just export a web page and then import it via plugin into your Sketch file. And as you see here, let's see if it'll show it. Yeah, I mean, it's very, very ugly. You have to spend a lot of time getting that to look right again. And then, it's a lot of work. So I'm just going to present to you my solution. Like I said, front-end developers can take a break. But what I use is, Chrome Developer Tools. And Chrome Developer Tools is for front-end developers to basically control not only the output of a web page, the stylings and everything, but also to test and check performance and all that stuff. And for UX UI, you can use it to modify live websites in your browser, and then check stylings, and then you can really focus on responsive design. By the way, DevTools is also known as an inspector in other browsers, for example. So first off, a couple basics. How do you find the inspector? How do you open it? You can go to the File, to the View menu, and select Developer, and then you'll find the Developer Tools. You can alternatively use this shortcut. So that's one way of doing it. Another way is by just doing a right mouse click and then hitting Inspect. Or my favorite way is to use this combination, this key combination, to select elements. So I hit that, and then I could just mouse over whatever elements I want to inspect on the page, and then they're highlighted here on the right-hand side. You could also hover over the various elements in the dome, and you'll get all the stylings, all the information for that. And of course, you can also display the web page using responsive view mode. Here at the top, you press this button, and then you can, I love this feature, by the way. You could select various device types, or you could go into responsive mode and just enter whatever dimensions you want. So those are just a couple basics. And I don't know if everyone knew this, but you could also make screenshots using a simple combination, Shift Command P, and then you get the so-called command menu. And you just start typing in screenshot, and then you get a couple of alternatives or options. You could just make a screenshot of a view, a single view, and then, of course, you get a nice little PNG that you could use in your Sketch artboard or your Sketch file and work with that. You could also screenshot specific elements by selecting them in the dome. You have to highlight them. You'll see them highlighted in the browser. And then you do the same combination, and then you just say screenshot node, and then you get a nice little image of a certain element. It's also very helpful. You could, of course, screenshot a full page, and the problem is with that, it's also similar to various plugins. Depending on the length of the page, if you have very, very long pages, then either the file will be corrupt or it'll not work at all. So in this case, what I usually do is go into responsive mode, select maybe an artboard with 3,000 pixels high, and then do the screenshot export. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about editing elements using DevTools. You could delete elements. You just select them in DevTools, and you just hit the delete button. And they're, not, of course, not deleted from the actual website for the whole world, but in your browser, for the moment, they're disappeared. I I like this example on the Sketch website page. I could imagine that this element or this section doesn't perform horribly well. I mean, I didn't really understood what it's all about. And so, like, say, for example, I just want to change that and maybe discuss this idea with other people really super quick. I mean, take you 2 seconds, and then you could show someone else this idea, or you could send a screenshot or whatever. So it's a really, really fast way to communicate design ideas. You could also edit text by selecting a text element, and then you go into the CSS. You can edit anything, all the CSS variables, change the color, change the font, the size. You could, show, for example, system fonts if you want. Very helpful. Because I mean, a lot of the work we do in the web, we deal with a lot of A/B testing also, and so we have to make sure we could just communicate these small changes, small variations that actually do make a big difference in the end. You could edit color just by selecting an element or a section. You could change the background color or just the color of an element using, standard whatever colors you want to use, hex. You could enter green or aquamarine, and it'll display that. And you could edit the size of elements. Sometimes this could get a little tricky because size kind of depends on the display properties of elements. And you might have to fiddle around with the margins and paddings and all that. In this case, it was really simple. Just change the width, first of all. And you could reposition elements. Say, for example, I have this one tile, and I want to switch it with a different tile. All you do is select the element and drag it to a different position in the dome. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about adding elements, and this is kind of tricky. And the question is, why would you want to do something like that? Okay, let's take this part of the website again. If you zoom in, you probably can't see it, I don't know, on this monitor, but there is actually an SVG shape in the background. And so if you wanted to edit this in Sketch, you'll have a horrible time trying to mask things and then change things out. So you might, want to try this approach. You could add elements in 3 different ways. For example, using a web host, or just basically copying an image address from the web somewhere. You could start up your own local host, or you could write a mini Chrome extension. Let me show you how this works. First of all, web host, like I said, just copy any address link from the web, and then you post it, or you paste it in your source for the image. You might have to remove a source set in some cases, so you have to just kind of fiddle around with things until it displays properly, but it will show an image from the web somewhere. Of course, cat photos. Everyone loves cats. Tim, for example. And then you could also alternatively set up your own local host. Here, for example, I have an image that I created in Sketch. I just, for example, I said the original image wasn't very good, so I simplified the image, and I want to upload, or display the image in the browser, just so I can see how it works. So I export the image into a folder. I have to remember where this folder is. And the next step is I open up my terminal, and I enter Python-m simple HTTP server, and you'll get your own server running on your machine. And so from there, you have to navigate to your folder, and then you just copy the address using this address, localhost :8000 and /filename PNG, and you could display any image from your machine from that special folder, test images folder, for example, and it'll upload, or not upload, but it'll display the image in the browser. Okay, so one more way to display images, for example. You could write your own extension. I have my test images folder, and I just create a manifest JSON file with exactly these items in it, or attributes. And for example, I have some, let's see, is it working? Oh, no, go back. I think I ruined the whole presentation now. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so for example, I'm going to display JPEGs and PNGs. Okay. And then in the next step, I think I did ruin it. In the next step, you go into Chrome, into your extensions, and then you click on developer mode, and then you load an extension. So you have to navigate to your folder where you have that manifest JSON. You have to remember the ID of this extension, and then you can go back into the web page you're editing, and you can enter that, basically Chrome extension ://ID file name PNG. So it works. It's a way of doing things. I mean, if you write the extension once, you could use it for all of your test images on any in any project. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff. And so I'm going to wrap it up with just kind of bringing that together with Sketch again. So how do you visualize change? And just a couple of tips about how I go about doing that. I create just a simple visual diff comparing a current version, a screenshot of a current website, usually in multiple breakpoints, with a target version. For example, I did this cat page, and I think it's really nice to have a scratch page. And so I find it helpful to sort of use a sketchy, kind of drawy style to annotate and to point out certain elements that I want to change. I've tried, for example, darkening elements of a page, and then people would ask me, is it supposed to be darkened out like that? And no, it's not. And this is kind of the foolproof way of going around that. So it looks like it's handmade, and it's a good way to just point out those elements. So that's pretty much it. To wrap it up with a single sentence or phrase, when you're designing for the web, use the web to design. It's a helpful tool in combination with Sketch and all that. Yeah, thank you. So,
you know the deal. But maybe without an accident this time.
Yeah, okay. Anyone have a question? No questions? Awesome. Yeah, let me throw this to you.
So, can you save the changes that you made in the DevTools? Can you change them locally so you can send a colleague what you just changed on a website?
Yeah, there is a way in Canary, so in the kind of advanced version of Chrome, and I haven't gotten it to work the way I want to. It's kind of tricky, but if you just research, Google it, and you'll find answers to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you could also integrate, for example, if you have a local CSS file, you could tie that into your project. You could tie in a whole folder of items that you want to display in the browser. You could also edit things in using developer tools, and then save those changes. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to add a little tip to your toolbox.
Sure.
I recently found a Paparazzi. You may know that for taking screenshots.
Yeah.
It's a little Mac app that you use. You simply add a web URL, and it takes a screenshot of the web app of the website. But you can drag it into Sketch, and you have the full website editable in Sketch. And it doesn't break the SVG version that you currently find downloadable.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I've tried that too.
Yeah.
I didn't have great success with it, but that's another, yeah.
I used it last week. It worked like a charm.
Cool. I'll have to check it out again.
Okay, no more questions? Yeah. All right, then thanks again, Brian, for your
thank you,
talk
Max.
and for joining us today. So Brian, yeah, thanks. Okay, so right now we would like to continue with a talk that is not directly bound to Sketch. This is also the reason why this meetup is called Sketch and Design, because we want to have like more global topics, of course. And therefore we have invited Ralf. And Ralf will tell us something about the concept community, his concepts he created that you have probably seen in the past, and the future of user experience. Welcome, Ralf.
All right. Thanks for having me. Let's step out a little bit outside of Sketch. Let's do something different a little bit. Let's talk about concepts that kind of push designs forward. And this is maybe not very clear for everyone. Let's try to talk about something different today. What are concepts? Does anyone know basically what are concepts? Has anyone went on YouTube and watched a concept video once? A lot of people, a lot of designers basically, let me correct, use the concepts to show their portfolio and show what they've done before. It's like exploring something. It's about drawing. It's a plan basically about an intention. When it comes to design, concepts are just the idea of the designer being true to life. But basically, when a designer does, or a developer or anyone else, when he wants to do an assignment, he's always bound to the sandbox that he's sitting in the app or the app store or anywhere you're developing or designing your app in. There's design guidelines, there's development guidelines, there's everything you have to follow or the client might not be happy. And in concepts, you kind of get more creative and more fun because it's kind of more easy to do mistakes and go wrong and explore new sides of everything. And in concepts, it's kind of more like do what you want. Not totally do what you want, because then you'll end up with a very bad, yeah, I don't know. That's basically on my side. So let's just imagine an iPhone, just an iPhone lock screen. This is how Apple designs the iPhone lock screen. Well, if I want to make a concept, I can just try to change something with it. I can try to add a music player, or just add the weather into that, and just concept imagine what can the users want and what can I get from that. So this is basically the short definition of a concept. And to give you a very short thing about me, my name is Ralf, and so I'm 21. I am an information engineering student. Yeah, I know, very far away from design. And I'm from Aleppo, Syria, and I'm very passionate about technology, filmography, and design. So yeah, when I was young, I was very fascinated about the concept community. Like, oh, you can do everything you want. Like the jailbreak community where you jailbreak your iPhone and you can just install anything you want. You're like, Apple, you're not my boss anymore. I can do whatever I want now. Yeah, it was that moment that I really liked the concept, and I wanted to break the mold and prove my skills with design and try to explore that. But basically, I had none. I had zero skill in design. That was the big point. And yeah, I had zero resources too. So no good computer around, no advanced software, no Adobe by your side. And I created my first iOS concept when I was 15 using PowerPoint. I know, yeah, that was intended. It's really hard to say, but yeah. So I was trying to think like Apple. I was trying, to try to predict the future, or like when a concept, like if you go on YouTube right now and type a concept, you find two types of videos. Either it's something really, really futuristic, like a floating iPhone with a holographic display. That's a skip. And then it's either something that is UI-based or UX-based, which is a concept that, hey, you know what? iOS 12 is coming up in WWDC in a few weeks, in a week maybe, and I want to imagine what do I want to see in that, and I can just imagine that and do that. And that was basically my point. I really wanted to do that. And I went on a journey to explore this UI, UX world with zero like opportunities and zero resources, and try to do something by learning by my mistakes and trying to see the communities, try to see those mean comments on YouTube. What do they tell us to do? No, don't listen to those. Okay, now let's go through the lessons I've learned using concepts. And what you're about to see can be best described as a crime against design. So designers who are really like trying to go into their creative space, please close your eyes. You might actually, yeah. Okay, so first video, iOS 7 concept. I was trying to imagine what's gonna be with iOS 7. And I said, okay, it was 2012. I was 15, sitting in my room, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to imagine that. So I went with very obvious stuff. I tried to add a widget panel. I tried to put the search in the notification panel, which actually Apple used for a few years and then dumped. I was like, okay. And yeah, the notification panel, we kind of started seeing it in the iOS 11, iOS 10 widgets panel, which is basically very similar. I was trying to do that, but only my side, Siri is trying to kill you. It looks really, really, really scary and not user-friendly. And I also tried to imagine a control center because most of the jailbreak community was like, I don't want to go to settings every time, and I wanted to do something like that. And I tried to design something that you can just access the controls, which kind of incorporates the iOS 6 design, and it's very different. What did I learn? It was heavily inspired by the jailbreak community. It was not super creative. The essential features was just, something that you can't do a lot of thinking about. It's just there. You really have to have it. And it was very poor design choices in comparison with the iOS 7 revolution in design and everything. So that happened, and then I made a second video a year later, which was iOS 7 Concept 2, which also was not very good, but it's good. So yeah, that was the worst time in my life. I was obsessed with shelves. I went to the iBook, I was like, it's amazing. Let's put that in the phone app. Let's do that in the music app. Let's do that everywhere. You get a shelf, you get a shelf. It was horrible. It was very, very horrible. So what I learned from that is every app looks the same right now. And the difference in design between every single app, it's what creates it. It's what makes it very unique, and what creates this makes it familiar for you to use it. And I really missed that point, and it made me learn that that's what's so important. And we always see this difference in design between so many apps look so many different from each other, and that's what make it what it is. And yeah. So then came the third video, which kind of goes a little bit better somehow. And then I was embracing the gradients. I was embracing the vibrant colors and minimalism of Johnny Ive and iOS and going through that. And that was really, really a big thing because you do those concept videos and then you end up seeing this huge difference and it's like, oh, wow, now I have to do that. And it was the same time where iCloud got hacked and everyone's talking about privacy and going crazy over everything. So I was like, oh, you know what? I can do a concept where I can maybe release something that is better with privacy, rebuild customer trust, and do something good. So thinking about the UX side is always really important about predicting what you want to do. And so yeah, I was like, okay, you know what? Search and settings, really important, because settings is like a maze. It's always really bad to explain to your aunt where's that button is or where's that toggle is. So I always wanted to do that. And then I also added some Siri spell, where you can spell for Siri. I mean, those were okay ideas. And then, okay, so here we go. And then also I imagined some other stuff, like the video app. No one is using that unless you purchase a movie on iTunes, and not a lot of people do that. And basically I tried to combine all these apps, like Netflix, Hulu, all of these apps all together, so you can have universal search. And now you can see it already in iOS 11 and TV app, where they're trying to do a lot of special deals with those apps, and you can do this universal search. I mean, those are good ideas, but who wants to hear about good ideas? Okay, so now comes the very, very bad part. I tried to put a watchOS interface on an iPhone, and I thought it looked cool. And it didn't look cool at all. It was just so horrible. I mean, I think you can see it now, yeah? I unlocked the phone. That was a part of the concept video I was on YouTube. So yeah, try to find that app. No. Yeah, you can see the emojis. They're pretty mad at me now. And then also there was also some color customizations. You can customize the colors of your interface. You can have a button that is, instead of green, you can get it red and everything. And then I realized Apple doesn't do that. And I was like, let's go to privacy and let's try to solve these problems with privacy. And then Apple Care, like you have to like go to Safari and like try to go through this, zoom in and like send those messages to the Genius bar, which is really inconvenient. So I wanted to do like an Apple Care app where you can like open and talk. I had like the direct support where you can just access anyone on the go, just talk with him, which is a really cool idea. And then a system diagnostics tool where you can just test your phone if this sensor is running or not. That was too professional, too much power to put in the user's hand. And then accessory test, because Apple already does that, or they already block like if they're not MFI certified. So you can just let the consumer test it before he buys it or something like that. And also button remapping, because I was going through the phase where my iPhone's button was not working and I was so angry at it. So I try to include that as a feature, but as you see in this interface, it was so like inspired by gradients and minimalism and everything that I actually went over with it. And it was too colorful, it was too much, it was, yeah, it was a designer's nightmare. So yeah, I learned that a UI that is designed for a 2-inch device doesn't work on a bigger screen. It's really bad, and try not to do that. And also customizability. If you try to like give the users a lot of choice, it loses this familiar feeling of the app, and it always like Apple always tries to. Big companies like Apple always try to prevent that from happening, like not give the choice to a lot of users, because then the interface would look ugly or it wouldn't look familiar anymore, or like, yeah, it's if you access to any phone, you won't be able to use it. And yeah, giving the users a lot of power is definitely a very serious matter. A lot of Android users love that. And then Apple always just like, no, it's too much sometimes. So that's what I learned from that third video. And then now I want to talk about features that I really, really enjoyed making. And so yeah, features I really enjoyed making. That was the fourth video. That's Project 9. And then I tried to have Apple Watch faces on the lock screen. I really want to see my rings on my lock screen. Apple, do that. I mean, I don't want to swipe to the widget section or do anything like that. So, and I also tried to unify iCloud, Apple ID, user profile, because as a UX perspective, or as a person who uses that, it's so annoying, really. You don't know how many devices it linked with this, and it's always a matter of luck. Like, I always get a lot of people, what's Apple ID? Oh, what's my iCloud? Is it like the same thing? And then if you try to unify them together, I mean, Apple should do that once. And those are one of the ideas that I had. Also, I wanted to incorporate something called Universal Learn cards. It's like Apple Learn inside the system because Apple always tries to like expand their like number of users, and they want to reach as many as possible. And I was like, you know what? Make a standard where you can just get cards to learn. That was okay. And I also wanted to make Siri more accessible for people with special needs or people who have problems like speaking, and you can just type to Siri and just do something with that, which is really nice. It's actually now available. You can enable type to Siri in the accessibility settings. And I also wanted to do better reachability into incorporating the split screen thing on the iPhones, which we haven't seen yet. And yeah, and I tried to add a plus button where you can just add a second app and everything. And yeah, I also really wanted like a camera API where you can literally scan, like use your camera to scan everything. I don't want to go to Snapchat to scan a Snapchat code. I don't want to go to Messenger to snap a Messenger code. I want to go to camera to snap everything. And it's basically really possible from Apple. It's basically just unifying all of that together into one app. And I tried to make that. I just scan a barcode and gets me some nutritional information, and yep, here we go. And yeah, so, and I also wanted to multi-user on the iPad. I mean, of course, everyone wants multi-users on iPad. A lot of people are like, come on, Apple. Yeah, this is one of the ideas I really wanted to have. And then Swift on iPad. I released a video like 9 months before like WWDC trying to like, hey, Apple, put like some kind of Swift coder on iPad, and then you'll sell more iPad Pros, because they weren't selling any at first. And now they have Swift Playgrounds, and it's working really well for them. And it's actually a very, very powerful tool. It's not just a tutorial. You can actually like code there and test things, and it's quite amazing. So yeah, those are some of the ideas. So okay, what about today? So today, until now, I have around 6 concepts. There's almost 100 articles, more than 100 articles were written about them. There's a total of 3 million views about those people. You can see that people relate to those concepts. They're unapologetically wrong, and they're unapologetically trying to do something that is miserably sometimes good, sometimes really bad, but people share it. People want to something different. It was featured on many blogs, on many places, because it's a place for discussion. It always opens this discussion with someone else about what's up with our operating systems, our mobile operating systems. What can you do about that? It always opens up the conversation. So today I have that, and I'm working on 2 other projects from the concepts community. Right now I'm working with Linearity, a company that does an app called Vectornator Pro, which is a vector graphics software on iPad. Like if you design on Sketch, you can just open your iPad and start continuing to that. If you have a huge iMac working on a Adobe Illustrator, you cannot take that outside. So you can just use your iPad and install Vectornator on that, and you can just open files and just edit everything. It's also free, so I encourage a lot of people to try that. I'm also trying to develop a new UX principle for the future, trying to do some change with UX, because I've been through a lot. I've been through a lot of mistakes and a lot of stuff regarding UX, and I really want to put my hands on that and try to do something different. And this doesn't look like a graph or something. If you look at that, it's actually the screens of the past iPhones. First, we've got the 3:2 aspect ratio, which is really, really old. And then the iPhone 5 came in, and we got 16:9, which is the biggest standard in displays ever. So the most amount of displays are all 16:9. It was a standard, it was great, and now screens are getting taller. We're getting rid of bezels, and the iPhone 10 is basically 19.5:9. That's that's a lot. So I try to combine that together and think about things and think you know what, this top area is inaccessible. Apple, I can't swipe from the top corner of the display to get my my control center. That's impossible, Apple. And then and then the second part is a little bit hard to reach. My finger always struggles a little bit. And then this green area is the reachable, is the area where the old iPhone used to reside, is where the old iPhones used to be. And so I was trying to imagine the top versions, just try to push the visuals up there and try to put the micro interactions in the middle, something that is a little bit niche. I don't need it a lot, so just put it on top a little bit. And then the most important things, put them at the bottom, which is really important. So yeah, more visuals on top, more interactions on the bottom. That was what the principle I was always trying to make recently. And so yeah, I always wanted to incorporate familiarity with everyday objects, which Johnny Ive always disagrees on that. You always need to, because people now know how to use phones and interfaces. You don't need to relate to everyday objects. But I'm really in love with those really natural objects, like a deck of cards, or just having a card interface where you can just use gestures or incorporate gestures in your display or in your app or in anything you're doing. It's really, really important. So also adding a sense of depth to your app is also really important. This is heavily inspired by Google's material design, of knowing where everything is going when you're pressing on something, and the animation is very clear, it's very coherent, you know where everything is going. This is really important. I really like those 3 big principles and try to apply them every time I want to do a new design, because they just work. They just work on older screens, and they work on new tall screens our fingers are not getting taller. We just have to make a new UX where we can just work on it. So we all know Apple Music. Huge disappointment. No, Apple Music is actually a great platform to listen to music on, but I often find it really hard to use, and it's always just very frustrating and clicky, and I don't know what's happening. The iPod days are over, and I feel I wanted to redesign something like that, so I tried to do something, and I tried to incorporate this idea of, you can see to the bottom, there's the interactions. This is the menu where you can swipe up from anywhere in the player. You can just control everything. You can see a huge, those 2 big squares of, you can access the artist. You can see this visual, the huge, very rich visuals, and you can see the album. And then the most important interactions are right by your finger below, and you get something that is very niche, which is the lyrics. You can expand that. Sometimes you don't expand that, sometimes later, so it's always a little bit pushed to the top. And then the name of the song is just basically, I'm not going to interact with that. I'm going to look up to that. I'm not going to have it in the bottom. I don't want it in the bottom, so I try to push that to the top. So yeah, I think this is a video. Yeah, this is an animation. This is where the app basically working. It's also using those animations where you know where everything is going. And I try to incorporate those card interfaces where you can see that. I try to add sleep mode, try those, very unique features. It's always very nice because you can just do whatever you want with concepts. So yeah, I try to do that, which is very nice. In my opinion, a lot of people might disagree, and this is where the discussion is starting and where we can actually learn from each other. So I also tried something different. I really miss cover flow. Yes, I really miss cover flow. Like iPods used to be the thing. Like this is what it used to defy an iPhone or an iPod. And I really wanted to bring that back, and I tried to animate something like that. Yeah, where you can, yeah. And now I get to use some of my favorite music. I know, awful, but so yeah, yeah, you can do that now. If you just go to landscape on Apple Music, if Apple takes my notes, but they can get a lot of more users if they incorporate something like that, because nostalgia plays a very big role in things like that. So just to summarize everything, it's about taking the current design flow and adding into it when you're making a concept. It's taking something you already have, the interface that Apple has been working on for years, and smashing that and changing everything about it. And knowing what do people really want. It's asking the people around you. Whenever I'm doing a concept, I'm just annoying a hell out of my friends, just sending videos everywhere and trying to ask them their opinions, because it matters. And it's always about trying to create the best user experience, although you might fail, but it's always very nice to try. It's also about thinking forward and trying to predict the future and being ahead of the game, like how Apple says, but they're not sometimes. So yeah, it's also about, it's not about the destination in concepts. It's not about the thing you create. It's always about the journey, about what you're doing and trying to discover new areas of design. Because if I haven't done those awful 5 or 6 concepts at first, and I started learning about UX and UI, I wouldn't have been able to try to think of new principles of UX and try to understand what people want and try to think of what it basically is. So thank you for listening, and yeah, that was it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ralf. So now it's your turn, if you want to throw it.
Oh. I'm not a good
Are
thrower,
there any
though.
questions? No. Questions from the internet? No.
Awesome.
Brian.
Didn't hit the light.
Let's see, those lovely interactive prototypes, what did you do those in?
Okay, let's go back to Sketch. Yeah, so first Vectorinator to just draw the icons and a few art, and then I jump into Sketch and do artboards, and then I export it to Flinto. So Flinto is really awesome with those animations.
But Mac app? Mac app.
Yeah, Mac, yeah.
For those of you who don't know, there was a Flinto web version.
Oh, there was?
One more question, and do you do a lot of hand-drawn stuff for quick concepts, or what role does lo-fi work?
To start a concept like any of the videos, yeah, I always start with a paper, try to just make a list of the ideas I want to have, and then try to eliminate the boring ones. Try to go with try to predict stuff, but as you've seen, I've never been much successful, but it's always really fun, yeah.
Okay, so no more questions. Okay, then I would suggest, thank you, Ralf. Thanks for joining us today and for your talk. Okay, so if you don't have something to drink, grab something. And our last speaker today will talk about pattern libraries in Sketch. And probably all of you are using symbols and nested symbols and everything like that, and overrides and all this stuff. And while it's like a relatively easy approach, there are some like edge cases and some best practices that Oliver Pitsch, UX lead at Trusted Shops and founder of Reputami.com, will try to showcase us.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks for having me. Do you want to grab a drink? Should we start over? All right. All right, so we're going to talk about pattern libraries in Sketch and how to not fuck up your nested symbols. My name is Oliver Pitsch. I'm UX lead at eTrusted, or Trusted Shops, as you may know, one of our brands. I do this UX design and digital product design thing for the past 10 and a few more years. And a few years ago, I founded a company here in Cologne, Reputami, which was in the realm of online reviews, in that case for the hospitality industry, that I sold back in 2015. And this UX thing and online reviews thing brought me to eTrusted, where I'm now creating a whole new product in the space of online reviews. And I want to tell you a bit how we approach our current situation, creating a whole new software platform from scratch, and how we're incorporating pattern libraries and prototypes into that. We're using pattern libraries in a huge way because we think that the first step in creating a new software should be a prototype that you can simply mock up in Sketch, then take to your customers and get the market feedback quite early. This is Mars. It's part of our new platform that we're building. We're basically taking everything the company learned from the past 20 years and incorporating it into a complete new product platform that will define how the company will sell the products the company will sell for the time being for the next couple of years. Mars isn't only that one view, it's basically quite complicated. It has a lot of features. It's a huge platform, and we're doing a prototype for nearly every feature we're adding. We're creating prototypes for nearly everything to really get the feedback quite early. That is how it looks like in Sketch. It's one of the pages. It's quite complicated. It's really gets chaotic to create these prototypes. We're doing a Sketch in combination with the Craft plugin and InVision. And there's only one page. In fact, there are a lot of pages with prototypes and clickable dummies. There are, in that case, 15 pages, over 80 views. They're all clickable, made clickable in InVision. So over time, it grew. It really, now it's a monstrum. And there's not only this one prototype we have a lot of them. We have prototypes for all our mobile applications for iOS and Android, separate ones for iPad. We have the consumer-facing apps that we're prototyping and taking into validation. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we're prototyping before taking it into development. And once in a while, every good product manager comes to you and says, can we quickly try something out? And this is where pattern libraries really help us to do that, because it gives us the ability to mock screens up really fast using elements that we've used before, that we created before, and to really design at the speed of thought and take your laptop to the meeting and really simply mock something up, create a prototype in InVision, and then show it around. We have a lot of pattern libraries. We have pattern libraries for a UI kit, which is not only a UI kit, and it's even not only for Trusted Shops. But we have this pattern library. We have a separate one for the mobile applications. We have a flow kit, which helps us to easily and fastly, really easily create user flows. So we're deeply into that pattern library thing. This is how it looks like. It really grew over time. We're one of the libraries. It really grew over time, and it's there are a lot of symbols in it, and they're all hopefully tidily created in terms of layer combinations. We have a bunch of buttons in it, so in our mockups we can easily swap them out and say this button is not a primary button, but it's a disabled state, or now it has an icon, and we can swap out the icons. And if you ever work with nested symbols, you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to get to that in a bit. This is what we do for inputs. We have a lot of forms in this application, in the complete platform. So we can easily create a mock-up of a new form and decide this is an input field that has a value, this just has a placeholder, this has an icon, it's a date picker, it has focus state, and we can simply swap them out with just a few clicks. We have all our icons that we're using on the platform incorporated into the pattern library. There are also nested symbols. We're going to talk to from next slide, which means we can we are using another symbol on that icons to change the color in our designs, which gives us the ability to use the same icon and then take it to one of our mock-ups, change the size of it, maybe change the color of it. And since we're using those icons as nested symbols and taking them to InVision, in inspect mode InVision, which is the handoff mode of InVision, our developers can then easily download all of the icons, and then I don't have to make them exportable for every mockup because they are by default exportable right from the pattern library. We are using a lot of nested symbols. If you haven't worked with it before, it's a symbol packed in a symbol, and it gives you the option to change the symbol itself. And to showcase it a bit, I want to introduce you to Trusty. This is Trusty, the mouse robot, and Trusty comes into place whenever there's an interface which needs a little more explanation or a little bit more emotion. Trusty is, as mentioned, a nested symbol, which means it's a main component symbol that features other symbols that then can be swapped out and switched in the overrides panel on the right. As you can see in the layer structure, there are a lot of layers, but there are also a lot of some symbols, expression and icon and shadow on the bottom. That is a symbol by itself. And having that, I can have the overrides panel on the right in Sketch, and I can simply drag in Trusty from my pattern library. I can change the expression if I want to. I can change the icon if I want to. And with that, with only 2 clicks, I can make a whole army of Trusties, which can be angry for spam mails and sad for 4 pages or happy for a good review. Another use case would be that input type here, it's a input field with the label, and since it's a nested symbol, inside this symbol, we can change out the input to not be a date picker as pictured here, but maybe a simple input type. It may have a value or just a placeholder. I can change the icon. I can even change the icon color. And of course, I can change both the text for the label and the value itself, which makes it super flexible to create a form with just a few clicks. And whenever I decide that the focus color of my inputs will not be blue, but green, I change it in my pattern library, and it gets populated all over the place. One last simple showcase is the main navigation bar, the main navigation component. Every item is a nested symbol by itself, so I can change the icon, I can change the name, I can change the active state, I can even put in a little dot that shows there's something new. So whenever I create a new interface, I create a new mockup, I pull in that main component, change some of the settings, and I have a complete new image from my navigation. We're also putting a lot of effort into setting up our components to be scalable. When I say scalable, I mean we want to have one symbol that works all over the place. In that case, we have our review box, which we use to display the reviews. We have the username, we have the number of reviews the user has already written. We can choose if there is a product involved in that review. The review always has a star rating, it has a review title, and it has a review text. And there's some more information pictured on here. And as you can see, the box can vary in height depending on the length of the title, depending on the length of the review text, which really can vary, and also if there's a product involved or not. And this wasn't possible in the early days of symbols because elements were not able to push other elements down if they get lengthy, or to pull them up if they get shorter. But since, I don't know when, but since a few years, since a few months, there's the great Anima plugin, which I'm pretty sure some of you are already using. And Anima has in their plugin, their outer layer plugin, there's something they call stacks. And it basically adds Flexbox functionality to Sketch. And it does exactly what is pictured here. If you add an element to the stack, all other elements are pushed or pulled, resized, is really awesome, and you can create awesome components with it that are absolutely flexible. Getting back to our review box, we can see that we have all these elements in the review box. All the review text and review title are just one-liners. And as you can see in the layers panel, the complete box is a stack by itself. So every row, as you can see, is stacked up. And whenever a row changes, all the other rows change in the stack. The only catch with that is that stacks have a defined spacing if you add them in outer layout. And as you can see pictured here, our spacing isn't defined to be always the same spacing. So we're using a little trick. We're adding another symbol, which is a spacer symbol. It has a defined height. It has no fill, no color, no border. And we're using that to define the spaces. All these space elements are also part of the stack, so they are also used to push and pull the elements. And with that Anima plugin, the spacers, and the great functionality of nested symbols, we can have a lot of different symbols with completely definable overrides. So for every of the symbols, I can pull in a review title, I can pull in a review text, I can change the number of stars, and they all get changed by the auto layout plugin. And using something like Craft as plugin, I can also populate data in there. I can add 1,000 reviews, add 1,000 of these boxes, and they all get populated with the right length of text and pull their height. The problem is that overrides suck most of the time. And the reason is that overrides is something you really have to be careful with. You really have to take care of your layers. You really have to take care of the naming. You really need to think, how shall my overrides look later when designing a component? As you can see here, the overrides on the right side, they're neatly structured, they're in the right order, they're correctly named. But this isn't how it looks like when you design it. When you design it, it looks more like that. So you have text, which, okay, does review text, which is good because there's a placeholder text. But then you have something like Evelyn Vega. That's great. And if you use Craft, which sometimes corrupts your pulled-in data, it puts something like a car name in there. So you have a label that's called Evelyn Vega, and there's a car name inside of it, and nobody knows what it is. And if we go a bit deeper, there are the stars for the star rating, and it's star icon, star icon, star icon, star icon, and they may not be in the right order, so you change a star, the topmost star and the third star gets changed, and you don't know why. So that's why I have a few tips for you, which we learned the hard way. Name your layers properly, because the name of your layer defines the label in the overrides panel. So it's not always obvious what it should be called, but always think of what is the label in the overrides panel that I want to use. Sort your layers from top to bottom, because that's how they will be displayed in the overrides panel. Use emojis if you like to, because it helps you to get the visual anchor in the overrides panel that you should put in text here, a number here. This is for the here is placeholder for a picture, or maybe here's a color picker where you can change the color of something like the icons. And use the lock layer functionality to hide elements from your overrides panel. You have something like, in some cases, you have text elements that you do not want to be changeable in the overrides panel. Simply lock them, and they will not be changeable. Now you have your pattern library ready, perfect. But most of us will work in teams, and collaboration is a big thing, so you have to share the library. And that's also something we learned the hard way. We started by adding the library to a network folder, which was on a local server. And when you open up your MacBook in a cafe, or you open up at home, you lose the connection to the local server, which is at your office, and you don't have access to the library. Bummer. Then we used techniques like cloud storage. In our case, it was a known cloud, which is basically a cloud storage for our own server, but you can also use Dropbox, Google Drive, or currently Sketch Cloud incorporated that feature. And you can share the library with your team over the cloud storage. Problem with that is, as we heard before about abstract, you really have to discuss with the other people who's working on that file, because you get that conflicts all the time when two people are working on it on the same time. So I think the future is abstract, or something like Cactus or Plant. There are different approaches to that, because it adds versioning, it adds branching, and the complete merging functionality. We heard about that before. So before wrapping up, one last tip for your libraries is to add a nice preview to it. It's pretty simple. You simply add one new artboard, which you call library preview. Turns out that 1000 by 800 gives you a nice artboard size that gets displayed great in your settings dialog in Sketch for all resolutions. And you simply save the library, and then you have a nice preview in Sketch. Exactly. So this is what we do at eTrusted with pattern libraries and prototyping, using them for prototyping. As it turns out, as many of us, we're hiring. So if you're a product designer or content manager, call us. And now I'm happy to answer your questions.
So that is by far the most beautiful question slide I've ever seen.
Thank you. It only took me 3 days.
Okay, are there any questions? No one wants to share his experience, maybe? No? Do we have any questions from the internet? Okay, no questions then. I think it was very informative.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Okay then. So yeah, we are at the end of our first event, and I would also like to thank you, the audience, and all the viewers at YouTube for joining us. And I hope it was a great event for you. It was our first event, so you obviously have some things that we can do, or we obviously did some things that we can do better next time. And therefore, we will send you a form in the Meetup group that you can, you can provide your feedback there, and everyone who is providing his feedback has the chance to win a Sketch license. We have 3 licenses. If you don't grab merch yet, then just grab merch. I think we have also more stickers, so if you need something, just ask me or any other employee with a Sketch t-shirt. And last but not least, if you like this room here, and if you like the capability of recording and live streaming into the internet, and if you have a meetup idea, or if you want to host an event here, you have the opportunity. Just write us an email at grandcentrix, or just speak to us after this event. We have probably some pizza left, so grab this. So yeah, and also grab another drink, and we can also have a small chat and some music here. So thanks again for joining, and I hope it was a great evening for all of you.